Alrighty, good afternoon, team. This is week 5 with the multimedia discussion by Eric Sandoval. And today is the 9th of August. So, a little brief overview. So, today we'll be diving into managing multiple generations in the workplace. So, managing multiple generations in the workplace. Um, in the human resource department, we'll be managing, as mentioned, different generations that bring different experiences. Differences can affect communication, and also HR can help turn these differences into strength. So today, I just want to be diving into the managing multiple generations in the workplace with a focus particularly on human resources. As we all know, it's common for workplaces to have employees uh, with different age gaps in the work environment. But essentially, I always view it as a positive thing because people from different experiences, bring different skills and ideas to the workplace. But as anything else, it can also create challenges, especially when people have different communication styles or different work expectations, different work ethics, etc. But essentially, on my presentation, I'm just gonna focus mainly on communication differences and how HR can help employees work better together through that. So, what the sources say? So essentially, five sources showed us some common themes that communication styles can be different. Generations may have different work expectations. Each generation can bring useful skills. Stereotypes can make conflicts worse, and also employees can learn from each other. And after looking up the five different sources, I did notice that they all had similar points. For me, one of the biggest points was communication, that different employees may prefer and have different ways of communication. Some prefer face to face, others phone call. Some may prefer emails, text, or other messaging platforms. But these sources also talk about different expectations at work, how employees may have different ideas about feedback, recognition, technology in the workplace, and also how they should communicate with their managers and fellow colleagues. Another important point that I noticed was that how HR should always avoid stereotypes. Just because someone belongs to a certain generation does not mean they will have the same personality or communication styles as everyone else in that generation. And also that having different generations can actually be a strength because we can all learn from each other. We all have different walks of life, different experiences, different ways we've been taught, and there's a lot to be able to learn from that and bring into the workplace. Now, some of the five sources that I was able to gather were from the Society of Human Resource Management. This has always been a very credible source. I've been using it for years, but some of them that I found were about multi generational communication, the benefits and challenges of that multi generational workplace, leading a multi generational workforce, managing intergenerational conflict, but also develop and learning organizations generational diversity. Um, so several of these sources, as I mentioned, just about all of these came from the Society of Human Resources because it focuses heavily on workplace and HR issues. These sources, essentially, from my understanding, from what I read, all of them, they all agree that generational differences can create challenges, but also they do not have to become, significant issues in the workplace. A lot of that depends on how managers and employees communicate with each other and the type of work environment that they foster. One thing that I did find interesting was that conflicts that look like generational conflict may actually be caused by misunderstandings or differences between individuals. Now, as we dive a little further, then we can, excuse me, look into potential conflicts in human resources. So one is that communication styles. As mentioned earlier, some do prefer email versus phone or versus face to face, while others have short messages that may be misunderstood, but also different ideas about how formal communication should be. Now, in every work environment, we do have individuals that that are more comfortable with, just saying their boss a text message or others email. And, that's the things we need to be mindful of. But also, well, we have feedback expectations. So, different preferences for receiving feedbacks. Some and then also different expectations about manager check-ins, and also how employees may interpret silence differently. For a quick example is like in recognition. Some people like to be recognized very, very out loud. Where it's like they get their moment in the spotlight. Everyone applauds. It's a big moment. Meanwhile, others might like it more quietly. My current boss does. She likes recognition more one to one, not in a whole crowd setting. But also a few recommendations. Uh, we wanna set clear communication expectations, right? When to use an email, when to call or meet, how quickly employees should respond. Also, like today's time, Zoom meetings, Teams, And then also we want to encourage knowledge sharing. We want to mentor. We want team project. We want to learn from different generations. It's important to foster that type of creativity amongst colleagues. Oh, and also in the end, having multiple generations in the workplace can create some communication challenges, but I don't necessarily think they all have to be a negative type of thing. The main aspect I took away from these sources is that employees should not be judged simply based on their generation, because we all have different personalities, experiences, and communication preferences. For HR, creating clear communication expectations and encouraging employees to learn from each other can help reduce conflict significantly. Overall, I think the goal should not be to make every generation work exactly the same way, but instead, human resources can help employees understand their differences and find ways to work more cohesively. And thank you all.